And what we fear is over-indebtedness, that is to say, what we call LBOs. You buy on credit, and if the market turns, what happens? It's the companies that then go under and lay off their staff. Because Numericable is a small company compared with SFR. It's a 5 billion company that goes into debt for 10 billion to buy something bigger than itself.
60 billion euros. That's the debt that Patrick Drahi has accumulated to build his empire. To give you an idea, that's the annual budget of the French national education system. This man owns SFR and used to own BFM TV and RMC. He lives in Switzerland. His personal holding company is in Guernsey. His companies are in Luxembourg, and he has 5 nationalities. The man who became the boss of the second largest French telecom operator wanted nothing to do with France except for its money.
What we think first is that he has a tax issue. Since Numericable has a holding company in Luxembourg, his company is listed on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, his personal stake is in Guernsey, a tax haven under Her Majesty the Queen of England, and besides, he himself lives in Switzerland. So Mr. Drahi will have to bring all his assets and possessions back to Paris.
In 2024, he hurriedly sold his 2 TV channels to pay back his creditors. And today, he's still selling. Not because he wants to, but rather because he has no other choice. SFR, the second largest telecom operator in France, is split into 3 parts and handed over to its own competitors.
According to our information, they are now ready to put nearly 20 billion euros on the table, which is 3 billion euros more than the initial offer made in October. A minimum price that Patrick Drahi was asking for to continue discussions with his competitors.
But then, how did a single man destroy the second largest telecom operator in France? What will be the impact on you, whether you're an SFR customer or a customer of any other mobile network? But above all, why did no one stop him when everyone could see what was going to happen? Patrick Drahi was born in 1963 in Casablanca, into a Moroccan Jewish family. His father and mother were both math teachers. At 15, the family emigrated to France to Montpellier. Patrick was a brilliant student. He went on to attend Polytechnique, then Telecom Paris Tech, and in 1986 he graduated. He was only 23 years old, and he has an obsession to become the CEO of a major global company. He started his career at Philips in the cable division, and he quickly understood something that many did not. Cable networks would become the infrastructure of the digital world. Whoever controls the cables controls the internet, and the internet is going to change everything. In 1993, he left Philips and started his own telecom consulting company. And in 2001, he founded Altice, an investment fund specializing in cable networks. His strategy is quite simple, and above all, incredibly effective, even if it's very ruthless. It's called the LBO, leverage buyout. It's the art of buying a company with the company's own money. To really understand it, imagine you're buying a restaurant on credit. You borrow 90% of the price, and you count on the restaurant's income to pay back the bank each month. It works as long as the restaurant is full. But here's the problem. If the restaurant doesn't do as well because of new competitors, a crisis, or poor quality, you still have to pay back the bank. But now you no longer have the same revenue coming in, and then the whole structure collapses. To pay back the debt, you're forced to cut everywhere. Less staff, lower quality ingredients, less investment in the kitchen. The restaurant repays the bank, but as it declines, customers leave and revenue falls further. Eventually, there's not enough cash to cover the interest. That's exactly what happened with SFR. What's completely crazy about this story is that Drahi is applying this method at a pace no one had ever seen before. In just a few years, he buys up 99% of the French cable network, Numericable, France Telecom Cable, UPC France, for about 2 billion euros in total. He creates a cable empire, and it works. In 2014, Altice goes public in Amsterdam. Patrick Drahi is officially a billionaire. He's 51 years old, and he's just made the biggest gamble of his life. But to invest, you don't need to take that kind of risk. You don't need to borrow billions, bet on interest rates, or play with other people's money. Its 2014 Vivendi announces that it wants to part ways with SFR. The second largest mobile operator in France is up for sale, and it's the acquisition of the century in French telecoms. Everyone expects Bouygues to win the deal. It's an industrial group that's solid, well-capitalized, and has been rooted in France for decades. Their offer is serious, clean, and logical. The synergies are obvious.
To snatch up SFR, both players have placed their bids. On one side, Bouygues is offering 11.3 billion euros and is offering 43% of the new group's capital. That means, for the seller, Vivendi, a valuation of SFR at 15.5 billion euros. To compete, Altice Numericable reportedly increased its offer by putting 11.75 billion euros on the table, as well as 32% of the capital of the future entity. Total valuation, 14.5 billion euros advantage, so Bouygues has the advantage, especially since the operator is supported by Iliad, the parent company of Free. Free would then get its hands on Bouygues' network and antennas.
Patrick Drahi was not well known to the general public at the time. Numericable, his cable operator, had a turnover of 4 billion, SFR had 11 billion. Buying SFR with Numericable is like the owner of a neighborhood bakery buying out the Paul chain with Paul's own money, but he has a secret weapon. He doesn't care what people think. He finances the operation almost entirely on credit. The final offer amounts to 13.5 billion euros financed, as you guessed, mostly by debt. It's the biggest LBO in the history of French telecoms. On April 5, 2014, Vivendi chooses Drahi. Bouygues is eliminated. France discovers a new name, Altice.
It's Numericable's industrial project that tipped the scales. According to Vivendi, it's the project with the most growth potential and the one that creates the most value for customers, employees, and shareholders.
And Drahi doesn't stop there. Hold on tight. Between 2014 and 2019, he goes on a buying spree. Portugal Telecom, the main telecom operator in Portugal. Cablevision and Suddenlink, two American cable operators that together serve millions of households in the United States for more than $25 billion combined. Sotheby's, the largest auction house in the world, which was founded in 1744 for $3.7 billion. In France, he buys BFM TV, RMC, I-24 News L'Express, and each time the same method. Debt, more debt, always debt. In just a few years, the Altice empire has accumulated almost 60 billion euros in total debt, including 24 billion for the French branch alone, which owns SFR. Drahi said at that time to the National Assembly, "We do things quickly and with ambition, but in a conservative way." The problem is that in his so-called conservative way of managing his companies, he made a rookie mistake that would cost him dearly, very dearly. The Drahi model relies on a single assumption. Interest rates remain low, and the acquired companies continue to generate enough cash to pay back the debt. For 10 years it works. Interest rates are historically low, and money costs almost nothing. Drahi constantly refinances, pushes back deadlines, and buys new assets with the profits from the old ones. But for this to hold, as you now understand, SFR has to stay competitive. And that's where the problems begin. When Drahi bought SFR in 2014, the operator was actually already fragile. The network was lagging behind, the customer service was pretty mediocre, and I can confirm this, I was an SFR customer at the time. They tried to add options we hadn't asked for, and out-of-plan charges that had no justification. On top of all these problems, there was a competitor that no one really expected who was about to make a big entrance. Xavier Niel, the founder of Free, who revolutionized the market in 2012 with €2 plans. Orange and Bouygues will invest heavily to retain customers against Free, but SFR will face challenges. The company has 20 billion euros in debt to pay back, and every euro spent on the network is a euro that doesn't go to the creditors. The result is immediately visible. The quality of the SFR network is going to deteriorate. Customers are starting to leave, slowly at first, then more and more quickly. In 2023, SFR lost 741,000 subscribers over the year. In 2024, an additional 1.3 million customers are going to leave the operator. In just 2 years, almost 2 million people will have left. It's a hemorrhage, and it hurts a lot. But that's not all. Meanwhile, the debt keeps growing. It reaches 24 billion euros for the French branch alone, which is 2.5 times SFR's annual revenue. For a creditor, it's a nightmare, and it's only just beginning. In July 2023, a bombshell. Armando Pereira, Patrick Drahi's right-hand man for 30 years, the man who built the Altice empire since the 1990s, is arrested in Portugal. He is suspected of having awarded more than 600 million euros in contracts from Altice's Portuguese subsidiary to companies in which he or his close associates were shareholders. The French National Financial Prosecutor's Office will in turn open an investigation against Altice for corruption, money laundering, and concealment. The noose is starting to tighten. The markets are panicking. The value of Altice bonds is collapsing. The creditors, those funds that had lent billions of euros to Drahi, are starting to organize. They are forming coalitions and will hire lawyers. Drahi's move is going to be as unexpected as it is spectacular. In 2024, he publicly threatens not to use the proceeds from his asset sales to reduce Altice's debt if the creditors don't give up part of their claims. It's blackmail that's legal but brutal. Either you agree to lose 30% of what you're owed, or you get nothing at all. The creditors refuse. In 5 days, the value of the group's secured debt securities will drop. The unsecured securities, meanwhile, fall by 40%. The gamble doesn't pay off. Drahi has to sell. BFM TV and RMC will go to CMA CGM for 1.55 billion euros in March 2024. 70% of the data assets will go to Morgan Stanley, an American bank. In February 2025, after months of negotiations that exhausted everyone, Altice will sign a restructuring agreement with its creditors. 8.6 billion euros of debt will be wiped out in exchange for creditors increasing their stake. Drahi will give up half of his empire to survive. And finally, on April 17, 2026, he agrees to sell SFR itself, the crown jewel, the asset he had sworn never to give up.
The operator SFR may soon be bought out by its competitors. In any case, a first step was taken this morning since Altice, SFR's parent company, announced that it has entered into exclusive negotiations with Bouygues Telecom, Free, and Orange.
20.35 billion euros split 3 ways between Bouygues, Free, and Orange. If you are a customer, you don't have to do anything. The contracts will be transferred automatically. But the Red Square brand, the oldest in the French telecom market, created in 1987, will disappear in the coming years. And what about the employees? SFR has about 8,000 employees. When 3 companies absorb a fourth, redundancies are counted in the thousands. The unions already estimate that between 6,000 and 8,000 jobs are at risk. These are families and individuals who built their careers here and now, face consequences for a debt they didn't cause.
There are also employees affected, and we know that there are redundant positions.
And even if you don't work at SFR, you will be affected. Today, France has the cheapest mobile plans in Europe, about 12 cents per gigabyte on average, compared to €1 in Europe. The reason is simple. Since 2012 and the arrival of Free, 4 operators have been locked in a cutthroat price war. This price war benefited everyone. Tomorrow, this war ends. 3 operators instead of 4, less competition for all French subscribers. The experts at Deloitte admit it. There will probably be a price increase. It won't be sudden, but gradual. But out of 70 million French people, every extra euro per month means billions changing hands. Patrick Drahi won't be the one paying that bill, but we will all end up footing it. And speaking of Drahi, he's still a billionaire. His fortune is estimated at $8.6 billion in 2026. He still lives in Switzerland and made a fortune from this venture, even after losing the company. But SFR, on the other hand, died because of a single man who believed he could keep buying on credit forever without ever paying the bill. SFR paid more than 10 billion euros in interest between 2014 and 2024, 10 billion, that could have gone into the network, customer service, or competitiveness. Instead, it went into the creditors' pockets. The business lesson from this story is pretty simple. Debt is a tool. In the hands of someone who knows how to use it, it can build empires. In the hands of someone who abuses it, it destroys them. Patrick Drahi has done both. And if you want the story of another empire built on debt that collapsed, but this time because of a 9 billion euro accounting fraud, on the other side of the world and which had a huge impact in France, it's the story of Steinhoff and Conforama, as shown in the video on screen.